Preparing stream now. Preparing stream now. Okay, so we should be live, right? Okay, and we'll let people funnel in. I'll share this link now so everyone can find it. And I will be back, Maple, okay? And Pascal.
All right, sounds good.
Hey, what kind of camera do you have, Dilla? It is crispy from far away.
I don't want to hear that now. I'm scared to like scratch my mustache.
It's so good, that camera.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I guess, yeah, you would need it. Yeah, that makes
No, I
sense.
said just the iPhone.
Oh, you got that new one. That new.
I was just telling the guys, like, man, I might be dangerous. I get a camera. I everything I haven't made any video or nothing, not on my phone, which is bananas to think about.
I mean, The iPhone is really great though.
It got some limitations. I still got Android. I'm probably always have, but
You know, I do like aspects of the Droid, the customization you're able to do that you cannot do on the iPhone.
just simple, like copy and paste things. That's really harder to do on the iPhone than it is on the Android. A little annoying for a historian who's always stealing things from one place to put it
It's crazy to think how powerful these phones are now.
I know. Oh my gosh, how long does it take you to water all your plants, Pascal?
It takes a long time.
It looks great.
Whole Saturday afternoon. Thank you. It's like a whole Saturday afternoon watering my plants.
I'm sure.
Yeah, my wife and I don't know, man. I can't believe I lived my whole life without plants in the house. Like it's just so much different.
I know. You have to have the correct light. Like that's the reason that I don't have as many as I want. Oh, she wants to make announcements. Okay, I'll shut up.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. We will get started here just shortly after 7 p.m. So just hang tight. We thank you so much for your patience.
While you're waiting, maybe Pascal, you can tell us more about your gardening tips.
Oh yeah, they could just listen to this Black history. Listen to Black people talk about their plants and their limitations to having them.
All right, so you just got to have an individual relationship with each one, and then they'll tell you what they want.
Oh, so you just in a whole polygamous relationship with the plants.
Yes. Yeah, my heart's in a lot of different places and a lot of different plants.
Yeah, that's probably why I can't have that many. I'm gonna have a favorite. So Maple, how many people are in now?
So that actually will come from Steph. I actually can't tell.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should probably wait a few minutes since we told everybody to join at 7. But it's Black History Month, and I know I'm always running a little late. So
yeah, we get to honor CP time.
Yep, there we go. Especially when it comes to Zoom, because I'm always trying to juggle my way onto the platform. I've used it 1,000 times, but I mess up every time. Gotta
Something
update.
always happens. Always.
Yep.
V, who does my bookings, I just told her to lie to me so that I could try to be on time, because that's the only way.
My friend started doing that, and I get a little mad about it, but then I'm like, you made the right choice.
I understand.
Yep. How's we doing? I talked to her a couple weeks ago about her book.
Oh, she's doing real well. Busy. It's like me and her and 100 emails a day.
Yep. Multi-hyphenates. That's what it's like.
Yeah.
Maple, you wanted to chime in here?
Yes, I'm going to welcome all of these wonderful people coming in. Thank you guys so much for being here. We'll give it another minute or two, and then we will get started.
We're taking the kids to Disney World for spring break, but I got my comment bonus today. And for 8 years, I have bought a pair of Michael Jordan sneakers with my ComEd bonus. But Disney is freaking, it's like $170 a day per person or something like that. And that ain't the fast pass. And again, historian Dilla has 7 crumb snatchers.
Oh,
wife that he loves. And then one of the crumb snatchers got a girlfriend that he loves. And so
it's a whole family.
I get to buy some Jordans. Well, better stated, my wife was like, you better not buy any Jordans. But who she thinks she is, tell me I can't buy a pair of Michael Jeffrey Jordan sneakers. So that's what I'm thinking about this Black History Month. Rather than not, I'm going to stand my ground and my rights as a Black man to wear fresh J's after working so hard all last year.
Says the man who's going to Disney World with everybody. That's who she is.
Another tattoo might be nice.
That's permanent. It'll last forever, you know? Lifetime of value.
I'm a tattoo guy.
All right, everyone. I think it is about that time. Good evening. We want to thank you all so much for attending Block Club Chicago's Black History is Chicago History virtual conversation. My name is Maple Walker Lloyd. I'm the Director of Development and Community Engagement. For those of you who are joining us that may not be familiar with Block Club, we are a nonprofit reader-funded journalist-run newsroom that's reflective of and responsive to the city's neighborhoods. Our full-time reporters are embedded in the communities that they cover. They don't parachute in once or twice to tell a story. And most of our reporters live in the communities that they cover as well. And this ground level approach leads to a more accurate portrayal of a neighborhood and earns the trust of our readers. Block Club also engages with the community beyond the headlines, which is what we are doing right here tonight with this virtual event. We're here to celebrate Black history, and our panelists will talk about the impact of Black Chicagoans and places that have shaped our city and nation. So now I'd like to introduce our panelists. First up is Tanika Lewis Johnson. She is a photographer, activist, social justice artist, and creator of the Folded Map Project. We have Sherman Dilla Thomas. He's a Chicago urban historian with almost 83,000 followers on TikTok that gives Chicago history lessons in 60 seconds. And Chairman Fred Hampton Jr., he'll be joining us shortly. He's a Chicago activist, president and chairman of the Prisoners of Conscience Committee and the Black Panther Party Cubs. And finally, Pascal Sabino. He's Block Club Chicago's West Side reporter and moderator for this evening. And Pascal, I pass the mic on to you now for what we know will be a great conversation.
Thank you so much, Maple. So excited to have our panelists here. This is going to be a fantastic conversation. So in the spirit of Black History Month, in the spirit of Black History Month, I want to start off by just talking about some of the unsung heroes that have made Chicago so great. So obviously in the past couple of years, we've been in a place where our city has been reevaluating a lot of the monuments, the names, the figureheads that we enshrine in our streets, in our parks, in our statues. And so I want to ask you all, in this moment where we're rethinking some of those frameworks, who are some of the Black Chicagoans who don't always get their shine, that don't have that street name, that statue, that park named after them, but they should? Why don't we start with Dilla?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm super honored. It's a really dope question and a great way to start. I'm always going to lead with Earl B. Dickerson. It's like my favorite Chicagoan ever. So much of what the country has going on, right? a really simple way of saying it is that if you went away to college and came back and got a really good job and you said, hey, I don't want to go live in Auburn Gresham or Inglewood where I came from. I want to go buy a dope house in Olympia Fields or Hoffman Estates. It's because of Earl B. Dickerson that you can do that. He was the first lawyer to reverse a racial covenant in the Supreme Court. And that precedent is what gets used to reverse racial covenants throughout the country. So I would start there with Earl B. Dickerson.
Okay.
That's a really great answer. And I think ties into a lot of what we're going to be talking about today. And just for our viewers at home, if you have an idea of somebody who you want to see a statue of, why don't you put that in the comments? Because we always want to hear from you all. I'll kick it to you, Tanika. What do you think? Who's a person that you want to see enshrined in our parks, our statues?
Well, I hate that Mr. Chairman Fred Hampton Jr. is not here for me to say this one, but definitely Fred Hampton. I know there's a bust of him that's like on the outskirts of Chicago, but truly there needs to be a sculpture of him. Not only because of what he stood for and where he's from, but because Chicago is a historic organizing city because of not only our politics, but our segregation and his movement, his multi-racial movement to really bring forth all of the issues that Black people are struggling with here is not discussed enough. He had amazing organization skills and really building relationships across all of these barriers that still persist today. And it's due. Like all the evidence is there. I don't understand why we do not have a huge sculpture of him. So I would definitely suggest that, because I refer to him in a lot of my presentations and conversations so that people can understand why multiracial movements towards equity is important. And no one else understood that better than pro-Black Fred Hampton.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And I think that kind of is a model for a lot of the organizing we still see today in Chicago, as you said, and worldwide as well. So next question I want to ask you all, I just want to learn a little bit more about you. So I'd love for you to talk about the kind of work you do and how that work puts the history of Black Chicago at the forefront in ways that kind of challenge people to think a little bit differently. Why don't we start with you, Tanika?
I'm grateful for my fellow panelist, Dilla, to provide the actual historical context of not just individuals, but buildings and places. However, I tend to think that the work that I do is truly steeped in not only us connecting the history to the present, but really empowering and enlightening our generations now to understand that documentation of what we're going through in this moment, in these days and times, is to prepare us for the future Black history. Specifically with my project Belonging, where I documented the stories of Black teenagers and the places, these specific locations where they have been racially profiled, as well as the alternative places that they create because they are racially profiled. They create these amazing free spaces where they get to dance, where they get to have fun. And I really stress the importance of them documenting their lives right now, because in 10, 15, 20 years, that will be Black history. And I just want them to understand the genius that they have in like influencing culture, not only in Chicago, but, nationwide. Black youth have been critical in really being trendsetters. And, we deal with the issue of appropriation, but the bottom line is what they do in their teen years is really important. So I would say that, that's kind of the passion that I have in my work is really helping the generations now understand the importance of documentation and really critically thinking about all the issues we face now, not only how it ties to history, but also how in the future, us knowing and having documentation of what we're going through now is really going to help us solve a lot of the issues that we're struggling with today. So documentation now by us in this time where technology affords us the opportunity to do so is really critical. And it should come from us, our own narrative. So I really just enjoy being able to help people understand the beauty of Black culture today and how it is the future Black history.
I think I'm coming to learn.
Before we jump to you, Dilla, I want to ask a quick follow-up. Nika, could you tell me how you incorporate that into your art practice?
Oh, Chairman Fred.
It looks like
yes,
Chairman
he's
Fred
here.
How you doing, Chairman?
Well, I just landed back in cold Chicago. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you all right. Sorry, I know it must be rough coming here from California, right?
Yes.
You missed the answer to my question when they asked, who do I think we should have a sculpture or some park named after? And of course, I personally adore Fred Hampton and his organization abilities and how he really helped transform Chicago's, history of organizing, especially with his multiracial movement. So I said that he should have a sculpture or a park named after him. And I'm aware of the bust that's, on the outskirts of Chicago, but it needs to be something bigger. Mm-hmm. And I really support what you all are doing, trying to make his childhood home not only a landmark, but a place for people to learn. So that was my answer. So I just wanted you to know that.
Right on.
Let me jump in. Chairman, we had opened up with a question just about some of the unsung legacies in Chicago when it comes to the way that we enshrine some of our history and our statues and our street names in our parks. Why don't I kick the question to you? Who would you want to put, in memorializing our city in that way that doesn't have that kind of recognition right now?
Well, out of fear of sound appearing to be subjective, but I see this as objectively as I can. I just even coming from, I'm literally just come back from Oakland, California, the birthplace of the Black Panther Party, and the state of Illinois was the largest chapter of the Black Panther Party. And the more I organize a day, the more and this is not to take away. I mean, we come from a long lineage of resistance, in the history of Chicago. There's so many people who have not been given their due credit, so just even come through the gate with, such forces as Jean-Baptiste Point du Sable, one of the first non-native, non-indigenous inhabited Chicago. And there's so many history makers here. Chairman Fred, in context, Chicago is a political monster, and I would, we just having some discussions recently about even the childhood home of him coming up for a hearing March 3rd for historical landmark status. And people be making jokes about someone say, well, let's not make it big political. And so, everything is political in Chicago. Frank Sinatra said, his kind of town, he meant, everything from, you can have a discussion about, water, everything. The locations, the street organizations, everything, the political dynamics of it. And the Black, and that open, that even we seen around 2004, we put forward, I said, the Black Panther Party Cubs in December 4th committee put forward a proposition to have a street named after Chairman Fred. And you see a city that has streets named after everyone from Hugh Hefner to every religious leader. It really heightened the contradictions about just, how this does not want to address, acknowledge, the political dynamics of this city. And we talking about a force, individual who in the city that was and remains to be top segregated city in the country, the Rainbow Coalition. And so I mean, I think it's a time right now that you can push forward with that. But to go to the heart of your question, you know, I'm saying Chairman Fred, which the Black Panther Party, it opens the door for so many other discussions.
Absolutely. So let's jump back into our last question. We were talking about just some of the work that you do. Dilla was about to tell us about some of his work and how some of that brings the history of Black Chicago to the forefront in ways that make people maybe think a little bit differently about Chicago and about Black Chicago. So Dilla, tell us about some of the work that you do.
Yeah, I'm now learning, I guess, that is me doing work I didn't necessarily consider that previous to very, very recently. And I think it's important because we walk past a lot of these things every single day, right? These buildings, these corners. And I'm a big proponent of, if you understand and have an appreciation of the history of the space you find yourself in, you're going to treat that space better, right? Like, you know, the history of, even before you really, really understand, like, the plastic on grandma's furniture kind of means something. And then, like, when you become an adult, you find out that, like, she sent them people $5 a month for 10 years for them couches, right? You know what I'm saying? And that's why, like, she wanted to preserve it. And so, you know, Black folks grow up not playing in grandma's front room, but that's a reverence for a space, right? You got just so many things as you grow older, you won't even allow yourself to do in grandma's front room, because you, from start to finish, you get an appreciation in the history of that space you find yourself in. And so I think that's what I'm doing on the largest scale as it relates to Chicago, man. We call, like, 64th and King Drive Old Block, but really we should call it, like, Herman Roberts Block, you know what I'm saying? And, like, in his story and him being a Black proprietor and having a skating rink and inviting so many Black luminaries to perform, that was his carrot in the stick, you know what I'm saying? And I think exalting those names, I think people go to Olive Harvey every day and they don't know that it was a fight to name Olive Harvey after Chairman Fred, right? And that'll reinforce the fight for it now. Like, this ain't new. Like, since the very beginning, we've been trying to honor our leaders in these cities. And I think telling those stories, telling how those stories came to be, and I try to tell them from a very objective point of view. I think that helps push forward what we need to do to kind of preserve what we got and gain more moving forward.
Do you think there's something inherently radical and something inherently empowering just about recounting those histories, in the same way that you said there's something almost sacred about developing this history of grandma within grandma's front room and the creation of that as a certain kind of space?
I don't do a lot of talking about the conversation I had with Dr. Tamil Black, because he asked me to keep it personal, right? And but I don't think I'm out of line of, like, sharing this. He asked me what did I consider myself, and I was like, I'm a historian, a husband, and a father, right? And then he was like, in today's world, telling true history is a form of activism, and in a world where everybody wants to whitewash history. And I was like, no, I don't think I'm an activist. And he was like, no, man, you really sincerely are an activist, reminding this city that it wouldn't be halfway anything without the Black folks. And not only that particular point, but that there have been Black folks here doing amazingly dope stuff since at least the 1850s. And sans that, Chicago wouldn't be shit.
Very well said. Chairman, I want to ask you a similar question. Can you tell me about some of the work that you do that carries this torch forward and honors the history of Black Chicago?
Chicago, let me say, Chicago, in many ways, is reflects, or it's a microcosm of this country. You know, this, to put it in context, you know, how Malcolm X said America's democracy is an hypocrisy. Chicago, the ability to put front the facade of freedom. Chicago, I mean, again, in a microcosm, it reflects it. I mean, this is the city in which, at one time, many people were speaking about, the great feats of, first black congressman. I think it was Charles Dawson, coming out of Chicago, but negating the trickle down, so what was going down in the base and down on the ground in the black community. The amount of black elected, in many cases selected officials that that you have from the outside looking in. That you see, similar to America, it gives the facade of freedom. And up until recent history, was able to claim in per capita the largest population of black people per capita in Cook County. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about Chicago, again, I lost my train of thought. The heart of the question was what? Said it one more time. How does it?
Sorry, the question was just about some of the work that you do. Wanted to get to know some of the work that you do that honors Black.
Got you. Well, we do. Okay. I'm the international chairman of the Black Panther Party Cubs, and that in Chicago, the branch of Illinois is the largest chapter of the Black Panther Party, and just even one of the jobs or the tasks of the Black Panther Party Cubs is the legacy of the Black Panther Party. In fact, we said legacy is more important than your life. In coalition with the December 4th committee, which is headed by my mother comrade, Akua and Jerry, from Deborah Johnson. I'll call you back, Pops, from doing an interview. Ironically, that was Wallace Davis right there, just called on the west side of Chicago. It's a Chicago legend himself, Wallace Davis. The legacy of the Black, that's one of our the jobs the Black Panther Party Cubs do. We have the Triple C's, Children, Community, and Cubs, which is done in the spirit of Black Panther Party Free Breakfast Program. Triple S is Straight Street Sessions, which we say we can't get the people to come to the meetings. We take the meetings to the people. So literally, one of our mantras with the Black Panther Party Cubs is that our work hours are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the streets are our office. And in the concrete, a lot of people, just even maintaining the legacy of the Black Panther Party is a hell of a job, hell of a task, because it's continuously attacked. There's an attempt to obliterate it or malign it. The question of political prisoners, the issue of Cook County Jail, the largest county jail in the country. We've been on the ground with forces such as Cassandra Greer Lee, whose husband, Nicholas Lee, was one of the first individuals that, quote unquote, died when the coronavirus, the pandemic hit. A week before the coronavirus, because we say coronavirus is capitalism on steroids. We was right there on the ground, exposing the contradictions of Cook County Jail. Contradictions such as 17-year-old women forced to rinse out their sanitary napkins, for reuse, right? I'm not talking about across seas, I'm talking Cook County Jail, 2600 California. So just a day-to-day work that the Black Panther Party Cubs, even before dismounting of many of the street organizations, a lot of people call it gangs. We had the tribe troops, I'm talking about the Chairman Fred Hampton Hoover House, 1992, not a peace treaty, but a tribe troops. And we take a different position that many people just take about simply saying stop the violence, but to heighten the contradictions about, who are the real criminals in our community and the fact that we are dying by design.
Thank you so much, Chairman. Wow, you went into a lot right there. I think we'll get a chance to unpack some of that in a little bit. So I want to shift gears and talk a little bit about art and just talk about, I want to talk about the way that Black history is communicated and, how do we get people to engage with our history in a way that is substantive and in a way that really does it justice. So I want to start with you, Tanika. I want to talk about how art can be a tool for getting people engaged in historic figures, movements, and the struggles of the past, and also making those something that people can experience in a way that's also very present, and how art can be this language that can transform silence into action.
Wow, thank you for that question. As Chairman Fred Jr. said about Chicago's political history, we definitely have the most political figures who have been incarcerated and charged. Like we number one when it comes to that. So, because of that, it's really important for us to understand that having these conversations can become politicized. And, art is such, I feel, it can often be an easy way to ease into some of these conversations psychologically, because sometimes you don't even know you're interfacing with the psychological consequence of all of these issues when you're looking at a portrait or a painting or some immersive art experience, or even just entertainment in general. A lot of people have removed the understanding that entertainment is actually art. That's art. And it can be used to help educate, but in a way that prioritizes the viewer's feelings and experience of engaging with it. So that often makes it a little bit easier to like sneak in there some of the true lessons or intentions of dealing with how Black people specifically have been traumatized, but not necessarily focusing on the trauma, but all of the nuances. That's where we haven't been afforded the opportunity to really share with the world at large outside of entertainment, is just the nuanced experience of our lives. Even though we have been dealing with struggles and trauma as a result of terrorism and racism, we still love, we have relationships, we still have relationship drama, we still have communities, we still have, we're not monolithic. We have different personality types, and those people interact differently. So art allows an opportunity for those stories to be told, like a celebration of our lives without racism being the center of it. And the analogy that I like to give when I'm talking about this is, the Martin show. even what's the other shows, the comedic shows that we have culturally loved, but the reason they have been so such a connection for us is because they didn't center, Black trauma or white people. It was because it was our lives being celebrated outside of all of that. And so I think that's the benefit of art, being able to infuse the focus of our personal lives and how all of these large systemic issues have influenced the way in which we celebrate, the ways in which we worship, the ways in which we love. But those stories don't have a pathway to be shared with the larger public. And I think that's where art can come in and bring people into those emotions, because Lorraine Hansberry, and I love this quote, she says, the more specific you are with telling a story, the larger its connection. Because when you get to focus on emotions, that's what connects us to other people. And I think art allows the expression of emotions, and Black people specifically, our emotions, that allow people to understand maybe why large systemic issues are something that we constantly want to, disrupt.
Very well said. And I think that with so much art, it allows us to find our own place within it instead of turning away. It's kind of, it makes you want to look at something that maybe you don't always want to look at. And you're going to look at it in a little bit different of a way. While we're on you, can you tell us a little bit more about your projects, the Folded Map Project and Inequity for Sale?
Oh gosh, let's see if I can do that real quick. Oh, wow. Well, Folded Map, I mean, basically, in a nutshell, it is a visual representation of what inequity and disparity looks like, using Chicago's historic grid map. We have streets that, run the course of the city. And so I'm literally showing the difference between streets that are named the same, but on different sides of town and racially, economically different neighborhoods, and comparing them. So 6700 North Ashland compared to my home neighborhood, 6700 South Ashland. But I'm also bringing residents together who live on those same streets. So they're distant neighbors, but they have a completely different experience in Chicago. So Folded Map demonstrates that. And Inequity for Sale is pretty much highlighting the really critical role the discriminatory housing practice of land sale contracts played in constructing our Black neighborhoods. Not even coincidentally, the neighborhoods that are often in the news today for crime. And so I'm really just kind of bringing that information down to real life. The houses that were part of that citywide scam still exist in the communities. Some of them have been demolished and turned into vacant lots. And a lot of us don't understand how our neighborhoods got this way today. But it's because of this period in time in the 50s and 60s that our neighborhoods look this way. And so Inequity for Sale just brings that down to the community level, and I'm creating landmarkers for a collection of those homes.
Thank you, Tanika. And I've asked my editors to put in the chat links to those projects so our viewers can check them out and take a look at some of the amazing photography that you've incorporated into those. So I want to pass it to the chairman and ask a similar question. I know you have a little bit different of an experience with how art has, how you've experienced some drawbacks to the way that that art has been a pathway for telling certain histories, specifically with last year's movie, Judas and the Black Messiah. I know you told me about some issues with the way that movie, for the sake of art, was kind of, as Tanika said, making things palatable or centering the experience and the pleasure of the viewer for, these are things that aren't pleasurable. And can you tell me, Chairman, about some of the sacrifice that came along in the production of that?
Yeah, actually, when Sister Tanika was speaking, I was thinking about as a term that we used in regards to the film Judas and Black Messiah, that we were able to place a number of Panther political pills in applesauce. Again, to put some Panther political pills in applesauce. The reality is, as Minister Huey P. Newton said, our people do not read as much as we would like for them to read. And also in fighting for power, as Minister Huey P. Newton also said, that power is the ability to define phenomena and make it act in desired manner. Power is the ability to define phenomena and make it act in desired manner. That there are no absolutes. There are no absolutes. Everything that we're faced with, saying that the realities could be a potentially double-edged sword. We look at cases even with art in regards to, in many cases, there were some cases, actually in contention with the organizer Marcus Mosiah Garvey with the UNIA. A lot of people attempt to romanticize the Harlem Renaissance, but there were some contradictions, because the deal is, the system, they leave nothing for chance. So whether it be art, whether it be music, whatever the case may be, even fast forward to the day in regards to hip hop, you can look at examples where it can be utilized as a potential organizing tool, or it can be, in a sense, used as a detriment. I look at think back to the example of the movie 12 Years a Slave. The scene with the slave master was literally taking the sister's baby from her. And he actually said, play that music. He told him, play the violin to calm him down. And so we gotta be real mindful of that. Case at hand. In fact, I just had some discussions now about, I was supposed to be back in Los Angeles February 26th for the NAACP Image Awards about in regards to 9 nominations about Judas and Black Messiah. I was speaking about, it just didn't get to that stage. Everything, there were continuous battles. Everything from, even some of the proposed titles that were put forward in regards to the movie. And the deal is, we are realists, and we know that, everything, we're talking about an industry, a historical, talking about Hollywood in particular, and taking into account the history of it. So we're able to, there were certain cases where our political position clashed or contended with, what may have been creatively speaking, or artistically speaking, advantageous. However, the deal is, many people can go on, today, to their life with the politics of the Black Panther Party. That's something that we can't compromise. So we had to, we were able to, as we said, grab a dream team and seize the time to be able, so people can be entertained. However, get some valuable information about it. And that's a struggle. That's a struggle. That's a struggle. But again, a revolutionary is never satisfied. So but also I'm gonna say this. I was talking to Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's daughter, she's still in Africa. And she was talking about, she would like to work with me on something. She would do something like in that spirit about her father, because there are documentaries out, about many documentaries about Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. However, you do need, in case you need that art, to get people engaged in the conversation, because from another famous movie, A Few Good Men, Jack Nicholson's character said, can't handle the truth. So just the information alone, sometimes, it's a hard pill for people to take. So we have to be creative, in regards to get this conversation going, get some information out. So like, Brother Dilla had mentioned the era O Block, and there was a piece where I had used some years back. I had flipped the script. I do spoken word, and there's a piece that was going viral on YouTube about a remix of I Don't Like. Now, but the police had started coming down harassing the youngsters when they started repeating the words I said, in Chief Keef's version of I Don't Like. So the deal is, they didn't have no problem with them saying other stuff, So we got to have our ear to the ground, see how can we take phenomenons, again, and make it applicable, to the audience that we're trying to reach.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like once some of these things are already a factor, they're already at play, you either participate or you don't have a seat at that table, right?
Yeah, and you got to be very clear who you are and your agenda, because if you go sometimes when you there's a joke they make about me in prison to this day. They say Chairman Fred Hampton Jr. goes to the Hebrew service, Muslim service, Vice Lord meeting, Disciple meeting, Stone meeting, and still comes out Chairman Fred. So even with the Rainbow Coalition, a lot of people was critical of Chairman Fred for even talking to the young patriots, who were poor whites who were so reactionary, wearing Confederate flags on the jacket. But the Black Panther Party was armed with the politics to come in as the vanguard party and win these forces the various points of unity. So it's not just a kumbaya, we all come together, or just you have to be very, again, clear, especially in the city of Chicago, who you are.
Yeah. Yep. In the city of Chicago, probably people trying to pay you off around every corner. All right. So, Dilla, how you doing? I want to pass that same question to you, but let's talk, in the context of social media. It's such a valuable tool, as you spoke about, for kind of getting people engaged, bringing some of this stuff to the forefront in ways that, maybe without TikTok, people would have never known some of these histories. Can you tell me about some of the value of meeting people where they're at, engaging with them over social media, and any drawbacks or issues with kind of misinformation in the way that cycle works?
Yeah, definitely drawbacks. Sad because there's always much more information and much more nuance to provide, say, if the standard was 4 minutes and not a minute or 2 minutes, right? So even that is kind of like problematic. You kind of got to really be deliberate about what information you're able to put in, and you're always mad about what you don't put in. But I love what you said about meeting people where they are. As a historian, that has been the thing that's been propelled our people every step of the way, right? And not only just meeting them where they are, say in the streets or in the corner or in the pool hall, but technology-wise, meeting them where they are. And so again, if we're all in the jazz age and everybody's listening to jazz records, every now and again, very popular speakers and orators and preachers will put their message on wax. And then that way they're getting their message out through the arts, right? Same thing with painting. And so same thing with social media too. Many of our great Black institutions in the media space failed because they didn't engage technology immediately, because they refused to not only, that's a version of meeting people where they at, right? So my kids being loud. In the late 90s, early 2000s, we still had all the Ebony and the Jets and so many different powerful Black publications, but they didn't get Facebook pages as soon as Facebook became a thing. They didn't get MySpace pages as soon as MySpace became a thing. And a lot of that was the old guard who was in charge of those spaces, just flat out refusal to do the new thing. Oh, that's for the kids. It's going to always be the kids that move us forward. That's the other thing that I know as a historian, right? Like in looking at every particular movement that has gained any kind of real substantive change, it was the kids that did it. And so it's going to be the kids that do it for us. And we better be using everything social media has to offer to engage them and challenge them to change the world that they're going to live in. And thinking anything less than that, people say at least now, because we say our kids are antisocial because they ain't outside playing. Now they super social. Shorty got 12,000 people that he interacted with on his Instagram. He's sucking in a whole lot of information in very fast pace. And if you want to have a chance at influence him, you better meet him exactly where he's at. And so I think that's the success of what I got going on too. I didn't try to move people off of this medium that's the right now medium to take them backwards to something else, right? I keep leaving them exactly where they're at and adjusting how much of my message I can give them or teach them in any particular time frame.
I really appreciate what you said about young people, because I mean, specifically on social media, the stuff young people put together, like K-pop Twitter, the people who are into K-pop, the way that they can like make or break certain political moments is just wild to me. And the way a lot of young organizers use social media as a really concrete tactic to do a lot of their work is just so fantastic. So let's keep it with you, Dilla. I want to talk about the way that we think about Black history. So a lot of times, Black History Month, I feel like ever since I was in first grade, I went to a historically Black elementary school called Harriet Tubman. Mm-hmm. We sang a song about Harriet Tubman every day instead of saying the Pledge of Allegiance. And now I have hair like this, amazing. So ever since first grade, it's like Black History Month. Let's like do a drawing of Rosa Parks. Like, let's talk about all of these people, which is so important. Like, let's talk about, Madam C.J. Walker, all of these people who did inventions and great people throughout our history. But what I like about a lot of your work is that you're not just talking about people, you're talking about places. And so I want to hear from you, why is it important to think about our history as a people, not just as the individuals, but also the buildings, the homes, the land, the neighborhoods, the places that our history is intertwined with as well?
Our history is so intertwined with, especially this city, right? A lot of, I'm sure the other panelists and probably you awesome folks at Block Club know, but the Chicago neighborhoods, the dividing lines, right? The 77 community areas are etched in Black history in one form or another. It was University of Chicago sociologists that used the existing racial covenants as the boundaries for so many of our Chicago neighborhoods. And those boundaries were set in place based off of Black history, right? One of those events being the Chicago Race Massacre. We refer to it as the Race Riot. But what happened wasn't a riot, so I don't refer to it as that. But that moment in Black history has etched and shaped so much of the city, where we find ourselves living now. And then also, I love, man, I'm such a fan of Miss Tanika Johnson's project. We always say redlining, and we hang that out front, and we don't talk about the predatory things that came as a result of redlining. Once the federal government says we're not backing any mortgages in that area, it doesn't stop people from needing houses and thinking that they're getting mortgages. And so, like, what I like to call them is rinky-dink records. They those are the people that were doing those land contracts, And then not just the land contract, shady insurance. If you was lucky enough to somehow figure out a way to get a mortgage, you were a veteran, something like that in the 50s and 60s, Allstate and State Farm still wouldn't insure you. Those companies had red line maps too. So then some shady insurance company would insure your mortgage. And if you caught a fire, it would just close the insurance company. And those are a lot of the burned out and abandoned houses in Inglewood and Roseland. And so just highlighting that part of the Black history story, like not necessarily victimizing us, like this happened because of us sort of thing, but this was placed on us, and this is why we find ourselves in some of these situations. And that has an overarching effect on the city, right? They don't think it does, but you know, we don't have a major record label, right? And it's because of the perception of violence, you know. We're starting to rebuild our film industry, things happening here, but a lot of that wasn't going on because of our perception of violence, and that affects everybody, right? So just recategorizing where Black people are now based off of our history is very important.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And just for our viewers, I want to just put this out there. If you have questions that you want to ask our panelists, why don't you put them in the chat? And in about 5 or 10 minutes, we'll do a speed round with some viewer questions. All right. All right, Chairman. Same question to you. Why is place such an important piece of Black history? And I think this is a great opportunity for you to tell us a little bit about your campaign to save the Hampton House.
Actually, you know, ironically, one of our mentors is also, you know, politics is like real estate. You know, you have to take into account time and location. The Black Panther Party Cubs, we're an international organization, and you know, I've been based in Inglewood majority of my life, southwest side of Chicago. We've been all over organizing. However, approximately four and a half years ago, we had launched a campaign. So we, the Black Panther Party Cubs, along with the December 4th Committee, we had, you know, came with the campaign to save the Hampton House. This is the childhood home of Chairman Fred, home in which he grew up in, right on the outskirts of Chicago, Maywood, which is not detached from the political overflow or the contradiction that happened in Chicago. In fact, similar to people referencing Chicago as Chirac, they have even to some cases reference Maywood as Murder Woods. So we had, I'm a servant of the people, and this was, again, a campaign we took on as objectively as possible. I'm saying it wasn't just say I'm going to save my daddy's house. It was a strategic move, political move, taking into account this is the childhood home of the leadership of the largest chapter of the Black Panther Party. We had to go and we in every campaign that we take on, whether it was a Free Fred campaign, which addressed the case of myself when I was a political prisoner. It was, you know, the Free Fred campaign encompassed the cases of Mumia Abu Jamal, Sundiata Kohli, the C numbers in Illinois, your brother, sister down the street. So the Save the Hampton House campaign was a campaign utilized again to heighten the contradictions, the predatory loans, you name it. In fact, Brother Anthony Mario Reed had referenced, in fact, was quoted in the press, in his capacity to Cook County Recorder of Deeds, that said the case of the Hampton House was one of the most blatant examples of predatory lending that they had ever seen. And then it opened the door for other people to come say, wow, are we going through the same thing in my family? And in many cases, it's, as we say, it's embarrassing being oppressed. It's embarrassing, you know, I mean, when we talking about the contradictions of, you know, our family members being locked up or someone being demoralized, not strung out, but demoralized on some form of chemical biological warfare. So we put the campaigns in an objective way so the people themselves can engage in these campaigns. Just kind of like even with the mantra of the Alcoholics Anonymous say, the first step in addressing the problem is recognizing we have a problem. To put this out again, not because in many cases we get information when we talk about the crime in Chicago or the drug uses, it criminalizes the victim, it criminalizes the people. It's something that we have done wrong. It's something else, as opposed like everything from the disproportionate infant mortality rate. And somehow, you know, it comes back and blames it on Black people. You know, even the police killers is something that we did. Even with the massive foreclosure, to expose the real gangsters and banksters, you know what I'm saying? The Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, you know what I'm saying? Fannie Mae, the predatory lending, all of this. And so this has been ongoing. In fact, we still had a campaign going on. We were able to successfully get the banks off our back. However, we have a lot of work to do still. I got to throw this plug in. We encourage people to still go to SaveTheHamptonHouse.org. Whatever support they can come out there to 804 South 17th Avenue, Maywood, Illinois, 60153. We actually finna get on the ground more, pushing about this rehabbing the actual house, and whatever resources people can offer or bring. That means their skills, you name it. Come on out there to the Hampton House. So it's been a reciprocal relationship with the community. We have the Save the Hampton House Community Garden in an area that was designated as a food desert. We have that right there. We in an area that actually next door there was nine documented overdoses, literally right there next to the house. And that was actually an attempt to the house that Chairman Fred grew up in. They had tried. It was planned for this to become a dope den. You know what I'm saying? This is similar to the tactic that Napoleon had did in Egypt when he shot the nose of the Sphinx. It was to salt the earth, to take away any historical markers, you know what I'm saying, from our hearts and our brains. So we have that area, that location. We have our programs, the Black Panther Party Cubs, Triple C's, Children, Community, and Cubs. We do that still every Saturday right there. We have Freedom on Radio, hosted by myself and Lady of Rage, every Wednesday, coming right up out of the Hampton House. So we have incorporated our program, our survival programs. We have the community refrigerator right there in front of the Hampton House. People can come, you know, have access to nutritional food and services right there. During the vortex, the extreme cold in Chicago, we actually turned the Hampton House to a warming center where people are able to come in and just to stay warm. We made a makeshift studio with children, youngsters were in tour with each other. We brought them there. They recorded some songs right there at Hampton House. In fact, we have an upcoming hearing March 3rd, for the historical hearing on the historical status for landmarks. Hearing for landmark status, historical landmark status, March 3rd. We want people to tune in, tap in with us on social media. We got a petition still going on SaveTheHamptonHouse.org. We want to push for that so there can be a historical landmark status at the Hampton House. Again, that's March 3rd. March 1st, I got to throw this out there too. March 1st, the swimming pool that's been abandoned for years, that was actually named after Chairman Fred, the same swimming pool that he fought because Black children could not even go to a swimming pool. Before the coronavirus, before the pandemic, it was just been sitting there. So we've challenged that. Now there's a battle going on between the YMCA and the Park District about who's going to be in control of it. We need people to put the pressure on, on everyone to say, we want the Hampton family to be right there, have some say-so, some input in regards to their swimming pool. And their plans to open up their pool this year. Because we can't have his name on it, and children it's like an eyesore. So that's just some of the campaigns that we engage in right now.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. And I'll ask the Block Club team to drop a link to the Save Hampton House website and some of those campaigns into the chat box so everybody can check that out. So I want to pass this to Tonika. Tell me about how you incorporate place into your work and why that's a really valuable lens for us to think about our history.
Yeah, well, Chairman Fred said something that I believe sums up, our thread on this panel, which is, being oppressed is embarrassing. And so I think the work that each of us does is to remove that embarrassment, because how history has been told, it's been told only through the portrayal of us, Black people, as victims. So even with land sale contracts, my project, just like Dilla telling people all of the important information, not only about neighborhoods, but Black people, and Chairman Fred preserving the not only the legacy of the Black Panther Party, but also his father, that's to help all of us understand that we are not victims. We were actually pioneers. We are actually geniuses that have been systematically taken advantage of. And we won't know that without all of the work that we do here on the panel and everyone else, you know, in this city who really uplifts the struggles of Black people, but not just the struggles, but what we have done. And so I think it's really important, especially with my project, Inequity for Sale, what I aim to do was remove the embarrassment. When I grew up and telling people that I was from Inglewood, I had to learn, oh, they think my neighborhood basically is a piece of shit. And I didn't know that because I didn't grow up feeling that way. And I could have succumbed to feeling embarrassed. But because of my family and my upbringing, I knew that I was very firm in how I was raised. And I was like, no, you just have the misinformation. And so this education of just history helps remove that embarrassment. The families who were taken advantage of through land sale contracts, I really want people to understand that they weren't victims. They weren't poor migrant workers who came from down south begging in Chicago. No, they came here with money. They came here with a mission. They were literally stolen from. They came here with the goal to own a home. They were pioneers in home ownership, but they were literally systematically taken advantage of. And if we don't exalt that part of what the Black experience is, then we'll continue to look at our lived experience today as just victims. And we're not just victims. We are great individuals, cultures that have systematically been taken advantage of. And the only way we can help the children and ourselves know that is through history and telling it through a different lens. So I just really wanted to just put that out there, that's why it's completely important for us to examine the spaces that we occupy, that we've been forced to live in, because there's a lot of beauty even in what we have been, the barriers we have been faced with. There's a lot of amazing ways in which we've circumvented the barriers that have been put upon us, and that deserves to be exalted.
Very, very well said. It's like the rose that grew from a crack in the concrete. And so much of, I agree with you, so much of our history is just a race that we've forgotten how to be the whole truth, and have that nuance that you spoke about earlier. So thank you for that. I'm gonna read a couple of questions from our viewers. The first one is from Lauren DeJulio Bell. The question is, what is your favorite thing about Chicago and or its people?
Did it look like he want to take it?
Yep, I saw
I
that.
was just unmuting so that I could, because you know my baby's in here loud. I think my favorite thing about Chicago is you can kind of travel the world without leaving here, right? Like you can go up on the north end of Milwaukee Avenue and get Polish baked bread, right? You can go to Humboldt Park and get tacos. So I love that aspect of the city. Just how many different cultures you can touch. That's for sure.
How about you, Chairman?
Well, you know, I've often said this a number of times. Even though it has been corroded, the dynamic of structure, you know, and many people, you know, like that whole checks and balances. I came up in the era, you know, so like everything down from the religious institutions to the street organizations, you name it. I'm talking about just that you know, and many people have an issue with structure. They have an issue with that, and I think I'm going to say, because many people, their first concept of structure comes from the context of the state, the police, the Marines, so on and so forth. Some state institution gave them that dynamic of structure is it keeps, like even talking about in regards to the Black Panther Party, it allows people to come in and form, you know, coalitions, however, but to still maintain their own their respective identity. And that's something I really appreciated, you know what I'm saying? Again, it's corroded, but in context of other places I've been, I say, man, that dynamic of structure, that, I'm saying, the checks and balances, accountability, that's something in particular that I always appreciate about Chicago. It has been corroded a lot, but again, that dynamic of structure. Let me add one point.
Okay.
Due to that structure. And because a lot of people say, well, we shouldn't have that. Chicago was the last major big city that crack cocaine was able to be brought into. It's not by happenstance. The deal is that one of America's policies is to create chaos and then restore order. I'm saying this now. Watch the situation happening in Ukraine. Watch it very closely. One of America's policies is to create chaos and then restore order. The deal is the state had to give. There was certain forces that had to be eliminated. Fluky Stokes had to be murdered. Jeff Ford, Chief Malik had to be locked up in order for crack cocaine to be brought in the city of Chicago. So that a structure. So again, structure.
Tanika, you have any ideas on your favorite?
Yes. I would say I just love the kind of to Dilla's point, as well as Chairman Fred. I love what Chicago has allowed me to become, as an individual, because of the diversity, because of the organizing history, because of how politicized everything is. You cannot grow up in Chicago and not internalize just being aware of some of this on some level. So I literally feel like, especially with us being in the Midwest, it's like we have the best of both worlds. We're like a large metropolitan city, but everyone knows that we real down home here. We real kind of Southern still. So I literally feel like Chicago has given me an ability to, you could drop me any place in the world and I'll be good because of the diversity that I've experienced, the strong Black culture that I've experienced, just being centrally located in the country, just the roots of the Southern roots, that I literally feel like I have a connection to so many cultures and nationalities and Black people all over the world that it might have been hard for somebody else coming from any other place to really understand that connectivity that they have with the rest of the world and other Black people around the world that I think, is unique to Chicagoans. Like, we can relate, we understand, and we have our own little, down home swag, that we can add to any situation. So I'm really grateful for being a Chicagoan, really.
Yeah. A word on that point of connection. It's kind of like in Chicago, I feel like half of us are cousins. I can't tell you how many people I've been like, oh, my grandma's from Forest City, Arkansas. And they've been like, we're cousins, like my grandma's from Forest City, Arkansas too. And everybody in Forest City, Arkansas is related. So it's like our ancestors took the same trains up from the South.
And we just, we have a down to earth vibe that I have definitely heard a lot of people say from a lot of different parts of not only this country, but around the world that, we down to earth.
Yep. All right. So my editors haven't cut me off yet. So if y'all have enough time for another question or two from the audience. Okay. So REI Worldwide wants to know, can we talk about efforts to preserve affordable housing options for current residents in historically Black communities like Bronxville? I think that's a very interesting question.
Oh yeah, that's a deep question, because what is not acknowledged are the very upper class Black people with money that live there. They invested, they bought those beautiful brick buildings, and they have actually, if we want to use the word gentrified, they've gentrified that neighborhood. But the horrible part about it is that they have not received the amenities that their income would kind of typically get in any other neighborhood in Chicago. They just got the Marianos and they're just now starting to have other people interested in moving in, but we really don't do enough. We don't really have enough conversation around the people who have moved into Bronzeville and really invested in owning and preserving some of those buildings that are there while still not getting the amenities that they deserve. And I really think we should have a conversation with the current residents and talking about what they believe in regards to affordable housing, but it is very political, and we all have to center them to help bring that conversation forward citywide, because that's the issue in so many of the predominantly Black communities, in predominantly white communities, but I have a completely different opinion because I just hate the commodification of housing. However, I live in this day and time, so this is just where we're at. But yeah, no, it definitely is something that we should always, every generation should continually be trying to move forward, because people deserve a place to live that's quality.
Mhm. Right
Dilla,
on.
German, you want to add in on that? Tanika, you covered. That was a very
Yes,
comprehensive.
that was very well covered.
Yeah.
I'm fighting with my 2-year-old right now, so we'll see how.
That's
how
our,
much
don't
of
be
an
fake.
extent.
That's our other panelists.
Right.
That's
That's how the
our
panelists.
panelists, man. Right.
Junior is something else right now.
Yeah,
But
bring
no,
on-
one was to two Black folks who find themselves listening to this, who find themselves in a position to start to invest in property. Don't let buy back the block mean price out your folks, right? And so like that should be a thing that should be addressed, and not only just Bronzeville, but in Inglewood, Auburn, Gresham, right? I understand. I too want to save some money and all that, and invest money and have a return and all that, right? And live well. But we do that to each other a lot too, right? We buy the 2 flat, the 3 flat, gut it, and then make the rent so high that the only people that work, people can't get there. So now you gotta place people in there or sell it, right? So we need to be conscious of that. And then to the other point, the historic preservation of our buildings is important. They need to be. That is why Chicago is has the lowest cost of living for major cities. It is the 2 flats, the 3 flats, the gray stones. You can only charge so much for them because of how old they are. And so while sometimes that's, we all want to live in new stuff that does help us. And so we got to continue to preserve those buildings. They can be, modernized, but I don't think we see, to your point, right? What happens, right? We start letting them knock stuff down with promises of new. The new doesn't come. Ain't nothing where the Ida Wells projects were. Ain't nothing where the Robert Taylor's is. So we gotta stop letting them knock stuff down. Build a new first, then knock down.
I just just add on to what my fellow panelists, and I'm talking all 3 of my panelists, so right on, don't forget them, man. Something Tanika in particular had pointed out, when you talk about a community being, colonized, or community being oppressed, you cannot negate the class contradiction. And the deal is that's a historical tactic in regards to, exploiting class contradictions that many of us, don't want to acknowledge, since it's late in the game. And many quote unquote success stories come at the expense of negating or dismissing nationality, just negating the question of race, or who you connected to. And then once those particular sectors are separated, and denied many amenities, Tanika just pointed out. But just many people just to be around other communities and get a breather from get a quote unquote breather from being Black. Again, get a breather from being Black. They do that, and then once they're isolated, then you see when the system comes down. With the blatant attacks, and there's no support base for them. There's no community base for them. So this definitely warrants some conversation. That has to be inclusive, not just with the race contradiction, also the class contradiction.
Yeah. And as much as I don't want to be a landlord, more of us need to be that, so that we can start to control what real estate and what affordable housing can look like. And I think that from this point going forward, especially with so many millennials and younger generations, like really understanding that real estate doesn't have to be so capitalistic minded. It is a place for people to live. You don't have to just use it as a tool to just make fast money. No, once you decide to own property, you are a part of the system, and you have to decide which side you're going to play on. Are you going to make this new 2-flat that you decided to buy affordable? Or are you going to just use it for a Section 8 and max out the amount that you can get and therefore increase the market rate of the rent around you? These are things that you have to think about once you decide to become a property owner. And I think a lot of us really need to take that moral assessment test, if you will.
Let me tag team. Let me add on some.
Pascal ain't never gonna get to wrap it up. This is what happened.
I'm like, we gotta have a whole separate panel about affordable housing. Okay.
You open up a political Pandora's box here, man. You know what I'm saying? And still shopping, men and women shopping, men and women. But just even always keeping in mind, because in a lot of cases we look at these situations subjectively, like it's just in regards to just us negating the policies that's put in place. We can look at such case examples as the prisons, or as well as the projects. A lot of people like initially with implementing the prisons and the projects. You look at the services. You know what I'm saying? You look at the janitorial service. You look at there are old pictures of the projects. You know what I'm saying? When people came in, white people in particular, you see how the grass was kept, everything. But then you look at the dynamics. And a lot of people just say, well, when black people come in and get messed up. No, it's strategically. They have a program to take away certain services, to take, you know what I'm saying, all resources, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it was a joke.
Invest, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It was a joke in a TV show Good Times, where, you know what I'm saying, in order to get some someone had got murdered, shot, they say, how you get the police over there? They call up, they say a white person has been a person got snatched. That's how you get services. So we got to always keep inclusive in the conversation. You know what I'm saying? The policies, how black people in particular are treated as the Rodney Dangerfields of all races. In other words, no respect.
Thank you so much. So it's time for us to wrap up. Thank you all for hanging out a little bit over time. I want to be respectful of your time and let you all go. But if you have any final thoughts, you want to share your social media handle or your websites, and anything like that, I want to give you all a chance to do that. Chairman, why don't we start with you?
Right on. Revolutionary appreciations for giving me the opportunity to be here. Make sure you give my contact to my fellow panelists. Put it out. Also, I'm on Facebook at Fred Hampton. Instagram, official chairman Fred Hampton Jr., also savethehamptonhouse.org, email savethehamptonhouse@gmail.com. I can be reached directly anywhere in the community. The streets are our office. I work hours 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Also, particularly at the Hampton House, 804 South 17th Avenue, Maywood, Illinois. 60153. 601. I'm almost at 606. I'm in Inglewood still all the time. Man, revolutionary appreciation for having me. Phenomenal program, and I definitely look forward to the future work with both the panelists and to the people in general. We say call free them all.
Thank you. Tanika.
Real simple. I live on Instagram. I still like double dutch into Facebook a little bit, but just find me on Instagram, Tonika J. I haven't cracked the code with Twitter. I'm on there, but I'm real like basic. So that's Tonika GJ. But definitely feel free to engage with me on Instagram, and that's Tonika J. TON as in Nancy, IKAJ. And I already got enough followers. Yeah, right. We already know.
You gotta put a shout out.
ChicagoMahogany.com. Book a tour. Take somebody on a day for a tour. If you have a non-for-profit or school, you want to take your kids on a neighborhood tour, you don't got no money, email us. We still take you on one. Then all social media platforms, the number 6 FIGGA_dealer, 6-figure dealer. all
Oh.
platforms.
And we still got to connect about the tour stuff too, Dylan.
Yeah.
Well, we'll all have to connect again. I want to have, another conversation with y'all about a dozen other topics. So thank you all for joining us.
Bye, Heidi.